Hi everyone, my name is Kirsten McGoey and I am from Trinity Design, a photography company in Whitby, Ontario. And we're here to show you how to capture the experience by giving you some lessons in Photoshop, sort of beginner 101 lessons on um, what to do, what to do first, because there's so much that Photoshop can do, and even when you are an experienced Photoshop user, you'll find there's always new things to learn. So the first thing I wanted to introduce you to was inside your camera, there is an ability, if your camera has this capability, to shoot in RAW and in JPEG. So this is actually the way that I typically tend to shoot. I shoot with a RAW file and then I usually do a large JPEG file as well. Some people don't do the JPEG. I like to have both so I can see the image when I'm scrolling through on my computer. RAW files you have to open up in either Camera Raw in Photoshop or some other Lightroom, some other editing software in order to see them. And I would prefer to see both. So if you go into your image quality settings, I always recommend you shoot in RAW. And basically the difference, I'm not going to get too in depth here, but your raw file contains all the information that you captured in the image, whereas when you select JPEG, your camera makes some decisions on what it's going to throw away in terms of that information to save a smaller image, and so you don't have as much flexibility while you're editing. So when you go to the example here and we're going to grab our CR2 file, we're going to take this picture of this little guy holding up a measurement tape, and we're going to open it with Photoshop. And you're going to see that it's going to open up differently than what you would normally see as your regular dark gray interface for Photoshop. So you see the dark grays opening up, and then our image is going to pop up over top of that in a Camera Raw window. And this is Camera Raw 9.3.1, and it shows you that I shot this with a 5D Mark II, and it has a series of tools along the top that you can use, and what we're going to focus on right now is the tools along here. So right now we're in basic mode, and when we're in basic mode we can make some adjustments. We can change the white balance. Now I'm happy with my white balance as it is, which was shot custom, but you could go in and you could actually change it to daylight. That slightly changed things. You could change it to shade. I don't want that, so I'm going to go back to where I was before. And there's a series of sliders here. So let's say that your temperature was too warm and you wanted to bring that down. You could go down to the blue a little bit more and bring that down, or you could bring up and make it warmer. I tend to shoot, I like around 5,600 Kelvin, somewhere in that zone is my happy place for in my studio right now. And I also have, you can, if you were to get some color cast, like let's say you were working in a woodland area and you're getting a lot of green, you could counterbalance that by moving your tint slider over to counterbalance that green cast on your subject. Here I'm good, I'm in studio, I don't have any of those problems. The other things that you can play around with, these little sliders here, are your exposure, your contrast. So let's say that you had underexposed this photo when you originally took it. You could actually bring your exposure back to where you wanted it. And if you ever want to get back to the middle where your photograph originally was, just double click on that little slider and it'll bring it right back to the middle. So you can play around with all of these little areas. Here you can actually move this bar and change the tones all at once. You can actually go in and you can sharpen your image. I don't suggest you ever go past sort of 60-70 for sharpening. It gets a little bit unrealistic. And you can also go in, like for example, if you were to take this was an image in like a smoky bar and you had a lot of noise, you can try to reduce the amount of noise in post by using the sliders here. Other things you can have access to are the hue, the saturation, and the luminance, or you can, in one click, change the whole image over to black and white and then go back again. So these are really handy little clicks. You can do split toning where you have two colors zoom over the image. And this one I really like. This is called lens corrections. And this is, for example, if you're shooting someone against a brick wall, your lens is curved inside your camera and it will give a little bit of a warp. And depending on which lens you use, the more wide the lens is, so for example, a 35 is much, much wider than an 85, you will get that bend of the lens because it's trying to see more, a wider plane, and your wall will look a bit warped. So you can go in and actually correct the distortion The other thing you can do is you can collect, color issues, and there's a lot of manual things as well. You can also go in and you can do some vignetting. Now, this was very popular in the 90s. It's not so popular anymore, but it is a function there. It's one of these tools where I always say just because you have it doesn't mean you should use it, but it is there. You can also see different calibrations if you needed to have everything according to a profile. These are things that probably aren't necessary to know about right now. If you do all these functions over and over and over and over again to the same images, you can create a preset. Lightroom is what I actually use. I don't use Camera Raw very often. Lightroom is like Camera Raw in a bridge format. So your photos are all sorted into folders. You have presets. You did a whole bunch of things to an image. You want to do it to all those images, and you click on the preset and it allows you to do that. And then we have snapshots. It's something I never use. So what I want you to take away from this is that this is a place to, if Photoshop is your only tool that you have, to create a series of presets that will allow you to make changes to your images really, really quickly. The sliders are really handy, and you can do some more exploring, but this is just a very basic understanding of what Camera Raw is, what happens with that file, and if you were done now, then you would just click done and it would apply the changes and it would dismiss everything, and the image wouldn't open up. But if you wanted to then immediately go into um, Photoshop, we'd click open the image and your image will open up, and then you're ready to perform whatever functions within Photoshop that you would like to do to that image. So thank you very much for joining us for our first lesson where we talked a little bit about Camera Raw. If you have any questions, by all means contact me. Again, my name is Kirsten McGoey. I own Trinity Design in Whitby, Ontario, and our website is trinitydesign.ca, and you can contact me at trinitydesignKM@gmail.com. Capture the experience.